What's up, everybody? Welcome back. We're here with some DraftKings MMA DFS picks. UFC 273, Volkanovski, Korean Zombie, Jung and Yan, Aljamain Sterling. The entire card, best bets, picks, predictions, DFS lineup advice, FanDuel, DraftKings, you name it. We're here to help you have a good time watching the fights and make some money while doing it. Welcome. I'm Brian Jester, co-founder here at Occupy Fantasy. Joined by Jake the Snake, owner of MMADFS.com. Jake, it's been a couple weeks. Good to see you again, and glad to talk some fights with you.
Yeah, man, good to be back. Looks like a fun card.
It does. Extremely fun card, and we have two 5-rounders. What we do in these videos, and in this specific video, we'll break down what these title fights mean for betting and DFS purposes. 4 newcomers on the card. We'll talk about their backgrounds and what we can expect from them on Saturday. Fights we want to target for DFS. And we'll give out some bets and our favorite prize picks. You see the banner right here, our new promo we have going with prize picks. So we'll talk about that a little later. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Get notified when we go live, upload any new videos. We generally do these UFC videos as long as they're a card of 12 fights or more. So make sure you subscribe. Don't miss that. If you enjoy other DFS sports, we're doing all types of content throughout the summer, so you don't want to miss that. Give us a thumbs up if you like the UFC content. Any questions, comment on the video, or join our Discord server. Either click join below this video or OccupyFantasy.com/Discord to chat with us and sweat out the fights with other members of the OccupyFantasy.com community. All right, Jake, all that out of the way. 2 5-round fights, 2 title fights. Generally, these are some of the best slates to watch just from a pure viewing perspective. High-level fighters, titles on the line, lots of big names. But from a DFS perspective, sometimes a betting perspective, it makes it difficult because that edge is it disappears a little bit just because of people jamming in 5-rounders and less crazy outcomes when we have fighters that we know on the card. But maybe this card's a little bit different. But talk to me about what it means to have 2 5-rounders on a card from a DFS perspective and how we should handle those for our lineups.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's 2 different ways to approach it. First of all, you've got low risk, which it makes low risk contests really easy because you've got more 5-round fighters to play. And high risk, you've got more ways to approach it. You've got the safer ways where you play more 5-round fighters, and if you do win, you're probably going to end up splitting with more people. Or you have the riskier way where you say, you take a stand and you only play one of these 5-rounders in tournaments because you know that most other people will play 2 of them, and then you're banking on a 3-round fighter outscoring one of these 5-round fighters. And we've seen both strategies pay off. It's not like one hits every time, but one consistent thing we have seen is every time we have one of these slates where we have 2 5-round fights, there's always at least one 5-round fighter in the optimal lineup. So pretty simple rule there. You always want to have at least one. You don't need to get so crazy that you play no 5-round fighters. So that's kind of a simple rule for tournaments. I enjoy these slates, but I agree they can be a little bit frustrating at times if you're playing a really high-risk approach, just because so often, you do see 2 5-round fighters end up. Sometimes we get bigger splits, but not always. I mean, we've had a few double-digit splits, but we've also had a few unique winners on these slates. So, I mean, I think there's definitely still an edge. There's still money to be made. And I think both of these fights, I think it's going to be harder for the underdogs to win. We've been a little bit spoiled recently. We had a couple where both dogs won not too long ago. So the last one we had both favorites win when we had 2 5-round fights. The 2 before that we had both underdogs win, which is really crazy. One of those was the Amanda Nunes, Charles Oliveira slate. Just pretty nuts that they both Amanda Nunes and Poirier lost on that, but. Amazingly, no one hit the optimal on that slate. Juliana Pena was in the optimal. No one even had it. So that just shows you that, you can still find a unique lineup here. And I think there's a lot of interesting approaches for slates like this. So, I mean, I know that you're going to come at it, with your ultra high risk approach. So, I mean, I'm curious what you're going to do in a slate like this where the majority of people are going to, jam in 2 5-rounders or else jam in Hamzat.
That's what makes it so tough. And because even if one of Volkanovski or Yan don't make the optimal, it's likely that the reason for that happening is Chimaev, who's going to approach 50% ownership on DraftKings as well. So it's not like you're really getting that much different by leaving out one of those guys and playing Hamzat, because the people who do that are just going to do that instead. So it really And then you add in the fact that we're going to have a very popular underdog in Mark Madsen, who I imagine is going to approach 30% ownership. Now, if you get two of those guys plus him, now a large portion of the field is starting their lineups this way. So really, it's really interesting to me. So I guess the way I think about it and the way and how I want to pick your brain just really quickly is of the two favorites, Volkanovski, Petr Yan, let's assume they both win. Who has a lower chance of being in the optimal lineup?
Personally, I think Yan has a higher ceiling. I think it's a tougher matchup for Volk to really score well. I think normally when he puts up big scores, it's through striking volume and takedowns. And, with the Korean Zombie, he absorbs far fewer strikes than Brian Ortega, who Volk just fought. And he's got a really good takedown defense. So I think it's a tougher spot for Volk to have a ceiling performance, but I think he's got a higher floor probably. I think he scores I think his range of outcomes is really probably pretty narrow, other than, a couple extreme outliers. I think he's going to score 100 points, basically, give or take a few. But, you never know. Things could get crazy, but I think Yan has a little bit of a higher ceiling. I think that both of them are, probably going to be long fights. Good chance they both go the distance. So, we're really looking at, knockdowns and takedowns are probably going to be the differentiator. I think the striking volume is probably going to be pretty similar. We look at Yan, he's 5.98 significant strikes landed per minute. Volk's at 6.42. But then you've got Petr Yan, he's got the record right now for the most knockdowns in bantamweight history. So, you got to give him the knockdown edge there. The last time he fought Sterling, he got 7 takedowns. He was mainly just catching kicks and tripping them. He did slam him down once or twice, but if you can just trip a guy and you get 5 points for that, it's really easy to rack up a ton of points. And we don't know that Sterling's going to come out with as many kicks. We don't know that there's going to be as many takedowns, but we've at least seen the upside there. I think with the Korean Zombie, it's going to be a lot harder for Volk to land more than a couple takedowns.
I think that's fair. And let's just say somehow one of these dogs win. Who do you think actually has the greater chance of winning? Is it Sterling or is it Korean Zombie?
Man, I think they're kind of similar, but I guess I would give the very, very slight edge to Sterling. But man, I think they both have a very small chance of winning here. Honestly, I think they're pretty similar.
Okay, fair enough. All right, so we got the breakdown for the main events. Jake's got his predictions. He thinks Volkanovski and Petr Yan wins. That's why you tune in for the big takes for this show. Let's move on and talk about the newcomers, and we'll go through this pretty quickly, and we'll discuss who they are, what their backgrounds are, and what we can expect from them on Saturday night. So we'll go from the highest price to the lowest price on DraftKings. Mike Malott against Mickey Gall. And maybe just a couple sentences, Jake, on background and fighting style and the matchup for Mike Malott.
Yeah, so Mike Malott, he hasn't fought a ton since 2015, only 3 fights, total of 170 seconds of cage time since 2015, which is pretty crazy, but he's been the striking coach at Team Alpha Male. He's been cornering guys, he's been involved. He kind of took a break after 2017. He said his passion just wasn't there. He kind of was looking at getting into more jiu-jitsu stuff. He got his black belt. He was looking at competing in tournaments there, and then he finally got back into MMA in 2020, and he's looked really good since. He actually started his career all the way down at 145 pounds in 2011 when he was 19 years old, and now he's up to 170 pounds, really filled out, really looks a lot better than he did when he was, kind of a beanpole. So I think he's a pretty interesting prospect, but obviously pretty high risk when you have a guy that has, less than 3 minutes of cage time in the last 6.5 years. So kind of a wild card, but all 7 of his wins have come in 2 minutes or less. So, what's not to like in DFS there?
Gotta love it for DFS purposes, that's for sure. All right, at 8,300, we have Piera Rodriguez fighting Kay Hansen, who missed weight. So, Piera, what's the outlook on her?
Yeah, so she's coming in undefeated, 7-0 record. 5 of those have come by KO or TKO, typically ground and pound. She's really, really strong for 115 pounds. You don't see that a lot. She can really crack. And she's going against Kay Hansen, who's 1-2 right now in the UFC, attempting to come back down to 115.
Unsuccessfully.
Unsuccessfully. Missed by 2.5 pounds. Fought her last fight at 125. Kay's struggling. I think this is a good spot for Rodriguez. Really powerful striker. My only concern in DFS is just the volume. I don't know if the striking volume is going to be there. Her takedown accuracy is pretty poor. but she attempted 13 takedowns on Contender Series, so at least the attempts are there. I mean, if you're if you're Kay Hansen in this fight, I think there's one way where Rodriguez lands a ton of takedowns. I think it's Kay Hansen gets cracked a couple times, doesn't want to stand up anymore, and Rodriguez goes to take her down, and Kay's like, sure, yeah, I'll just go for an armbar, and basically just lets her take her down. And I think that would be one way where we see Rodriguez rack up some takedowns, as long as she can avoid getting armbarred. But really powerful striker is the main thing with her.
For sure. And then at 7,500, we have Silent D, Josh Frem. What's up with him?
Yeah, so we got Josh Fremd coming in 9-2, 7 early wins. All of those finishes have come in the first 2 rounds. The first time I saw this guy was when I was scouting Gregory Rodriguez a year ago when he made his debut, and I was like, oh man, Gregory Rodriguez just murdered this guy. Like, that guy's terrible. And then that was my mindset coming in, and then I started watching him. I was like, all right, he's actually pretty good for DFS. Like, it's all, finish or get finished. Really aggressive guy, lots of knockouts, some submissions. Trains out of Factory X in Colorado with guys like Dustin Jacoby. So even though he took this fight on short notice, I think that his cardio is going to be better than most short notice fighters. But it may not matter if he's going for a first round finish. I think he's a pretty interesting prospect. Wouldn't be surprised if he gets submitted really early, and also wouldn't be surprised if he lands an early knockout. So good guy to target for DFS.
Absolutely. Those are the fighters that we love. Now, the final one is Daniel Santos, and he is fighting another overweight fighter, Miss Weight, and Julio Arce. So, Santos, give me the rundown on him.
Yeah, so a little bit weird right here. He hasn't competed since December 2019. He had been scheduled to make his debut last fall. That ended up falling through. He's 8-1, has never been finished. 5 of his 8 wins have come early. Really good with spinning attacks, like putting his heel into people's ribs. He's got 2 spinning back heel finishes, 1 spinning elbow. Personally, I was a little concerned about his volume, thinking that, all right, well, he probably can't score well on a decision. And then I saw Arce weigh in, and I was like, all right, yeah, I'm pretty interested in Santos now. So, I mean, this is really just the narrative of the terrible weigh-in for Arce for me. I think Santos is pretty decent, but I mean, God, Arce looked terrible on the scales today, and he missed weight, so really just a weigh-in narrative play for me. But we don't know a ton, he hasn't fought in a few years, still a young guy, maybe he's been improving, trains with Charles Oliveira down at Shoot a Box, so I mean, he's got a good pedigree, still a young guy, not a ton of fights, not a lot of activity, those are all the concerns, but yeah, you gotta love going against Arce right here. Even though normally Arce wouldn't be a guy you'd want to target, but we're targeting the weigh-in.
The narratives here, the trends, we're always looking for situational spots, and that certainly qualifies. So let's keep it moving. Let's talk about, and we'll keep this brief. And if you want more information on these fights and our strategies, check out the Daily Plug, OccupyFantasy.com, where Jake writes about his top plays, low risk and high risk, lineup specific strategies for FanDuel and DraftKings, depending on the contest type that you're in, and his best bets and his prize picks. You can also check out MMADFS.com, where Jake literally breaks down every single fight on the card from a betting and DFS perspective, and also has premium content over there as well if you want more in-depth info. So we'll keep this brief here, Jake. So 1 or 2 fights outside the main events that you think, all right, whoever wins this fight is likely going to score pretty well.
Yeah, so I think there's 2 fights where we could see the winner outscore any of the big 3 fighters, basically including Chimaev. That's almost a main event. I mean, I know it's only 3 rounds, but come on, it's not going to make it 3. So, I mean, from an ownership perspective, it's almost like we have 3 5-round fights here.
For sure.
So, the 2 fights that I think could potentially outscore that are going to be the Anthony Fluffy Hernandez versus Josh Fremd fight. I think there's a really good chance that fight does not make it to the 3rd round. Very good chance it ends in the 1st round. I think we could see a high score there. Hernandez, we've seen him land a ton of takedowns. Fremd, finishing upside both on the feet and the mat. And the other fight I like is old man Alexei Oleinik and Jared Vanderaa. And Vanderaa took this fight on short notice after Latifi dropped out twice against Oleinik. I mean, we've seen Vanderaa get murdered on the mat a couple times. So, I mean, Oleinik has not been a guy that's been performing well lately. I think he's lost his last 3. This kind of looks like a dream matchup for him. If he's ever going to get another win, a guy that's helpless on his back like Vanderaa, I think that's a prime matchup for Oleinik. So with both guys priced, right in the middle on DraftKings and FanDuel for that matter, I think there's a lot of upside in the winner there.
Yeah, I mean, look at his DraftKings profile picture. How can you not trust this guy? Look at it. You put money on this guy, you got to feel pretty good. Come on now. So, all right, those are fights you want to target in your DFS tournament lineups. Let's talk about prize picks really quickly. We do have a 100% deposit bonus if you use code OCCUPY to sign up. The link is in the description below, or you can just go to prizepicks.com and enter the promo code. Get a 100% deposit match. Deposit $100, get $100 free. Use that free $100 on some of the picks we're about to tell you. Jake, I don't know if you want to give me one or two picks. We got a bunch of picks in the plug. You have a bunch of picks, even more on your site. But just really quickly, maybe some prize pick strategy and who you're looking at this week.
Yeah, so I think a big prize pick strategy to keep in mind is they basically base their scoring system off FanDuel. So FanDuel recently got rid of takedowns defended, but prize picks did not. So that's the one difference they have. So, I mean, it's kind of like a cheat code over on prize picks, which we don't want too many people to know this. They might stop doing it. But guys that are going to defend a bunch of takedowns, if you can get there over, which normally does not account for that. So a guy like Peter Yan, who defended like 16 takedowns the last time he fought Sterling, scored like 150 points in a round 4 disqualification. He didn't even win the fight.
Yeah.
He was the highest scorer on that slate. His over is 126.5. Like, he soared by that in a loss in his last fight. So I love that line. I think that's a great strategy on prize picks, is keeping in mind that takedowns defended still score points, even though they don't anywhere else anymore. Prize picks is the one place that still does that. That used to be a great edge on FanDuel. Now it's only a great edge on prize picks.
Fair enough. So if you like that Piotr Yan over, we got a bunch more of those plays to pair with it to get the 2, 3, 4, 5 leg parlay. So check out the Daily Plug. Check out MMADFS.com for more of those prize picks. And again, use the promo code OCCUPY. Jake, we'll close out the show. I know you have a bunch of bets on your website. You have a bunch of bets in the Daily Plug. There's some juicy ones this week. I'm a big fan of a lot, but let's get a stream parlay in action. I'll give a leg. You give a leg. We'll probably hit it. And we'll retire. So I'll start, and I just talked about his face on DraftKings, and can't believe it. Anytime you can back a guy who's lost like his last 27 fights in a row, you got to do it. So Alexei Oleinik, I mean, this is the perfect matchup for him, like you said, for a submission. Vandera just helpless on the ground, and Oleinik has like literally 50 submissions to his name. So I'll go with Alexei Oleinik in a submission. It's what, plus 165-ish, right?
Yeah, no, I like that bet. I mean, if he wins the fight, that's how he wins. You know, he's either submitting Vandera or he's getting knocked out. And I mean, obviously now he's going to a decision now that I said that, but you know, that's my take on it. So I like that bet. I mean, I wanted it to be like plus 180, and I was like, all right, fine, it's still a good bet. Like based on that's how he wins, and you can get better value than his money line. So I like that. I also really like over on FanDuel Lad round 3 or decision at plus 220. I know some other sites offer that too, but that was the best line I could find. Now I'd like her to bounce back here. I know it's a tough matchup against Pennington, but I think she's got upside, and everyone's going to be down on her, so we can get some value in the line. So Lad round 3 or decision plus 220 is going to be my leg.
I love it. I love Lad for DFS as well. I mean, you figure she was in a main event last time out. Her coaches were literally yelling at her, I don't know what you're doing, you have to punch, and she still wouldn't punch. Coming off a 2-year layoff in that fight, gotta imagine she knocked some of that ring rust off, and I think that fight and just her general odds here and the fact that she's a female fighter and doesn't have great finishing potential will keep her ownership incredibly in check. So I agree. I actually like her to win this fight. I like her to bounce back. And I love that bet that you pointed out. So between Oleinik sub and Lad round 3 or decision, what does that give us for a parlay?
So that should be plus 748.
Plus 748, we'll take that ticket and we will cash it. So that'll do it for the show. Make sure you follow Jake on Twitter at DFS_MMA. You can follow me at Brian Jester FF. Follow us at Occupy Fantasy. MMADFS.com. Everything you need. Check out the historical archives if you want to do research. That's what we do all the time. We looked at, Jake talked about earlier, 5-round slates. What do they look like? Well, we can go to the archive, MMADFS.com, and see what the information for that slate was. And then OccupyFantasy.com for all your DFS and betting needs. The Occupy model ranks every fighter, FanDuel, DraftKings, with projected ownership. Daily Plug, top plays, best picks, best bets, lineup strategies, and then our lineup builder, which allows you to build up to 150 lineups using our optimal UFC DFS lineup criteria. So for Jake, I'm Brian. Thanks for listening, and good luck at UFC 273.